about to go deep with Dan Good.
There we go.
We're in.
Annisa.
We're here.
Annisa.
Yeah, that's my name. Don't wear it out. In fact, it's the sweetest sound that anyone can ever hear is your own name.
And we may wear it out in this podcast. So.
I'm not possible.
Really?
Not possible. No. I mean, I do pride myself in having a very controlled ego, but hey, if you say my name 1,000 times, I'm probably going to like you more, is all I'm saying.
You'd be used to it now with a microphone, right? Doing comedy.
Yeah, actually, that's interesting. Kind of getting introduced and hearing your own name is fun, especially when you're starting out. It's like, oh, cool. Yep, that's me. That's me. Usually you're just so used to like school saying like roll call and hearing your name that way, or when you're in trouble by your parents, like that's the two. When it's actually to applause, that's a bit different. That's a bit fun.
I guess there's no way to really shorten that either, because I know if I hear Dan, it's friendly, but if I hear Daniel, I'm like, oh, what did I do wrong?
Yeah, actually, the only time I know, like, but no one knows this, so this will be fun, is my father says my name a specific way because it's Russian, and I know I'm in trouble when that happens.
Yeah.
Not so much in my adult life, but when I was younger, because my name's Annisa or Annisa in Russian, like just a small accent change. But when I'm in trouble, it's Aniska. Aniska. Like that.
It doesn't really sound like a trouble sort of tone though,
when you hear it from my father though, that's a different story.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how are you feeling? You're back in Brisbane. You ready to do your comedy show, do an hour?
Yeah, I'm back in Brisbane. I've got this week. It's actually great because I've got Russian Christmas tomorrow with my family.
Okay.
So my background's Russian Orthodox. And so they're all sort of in town, which is fantastic. And that's why I kind of programmed these Brisbane shows around kind of that, but not really.
Yeah, okay.
And wanted to use Brisbane as a way to kick off the tour, which is fun and big and huge and kind of mind-blowing, which is great.
And you have the support there, obviously, fam and friendly, friendly fam.
Friendly fam.
Friends is what I meant to say, but I kind of jumbled that up.
Friendly fam. Yeah, I have friends and family coming, which is just incredible. I think it's one of those things where originally, again, I'm doing 2 nights. Originally, I kind of came with this concept of I'll do 1 night. It'll be kind of like this big shindig of family and friends, and we'll record the show, and it'll be kind of like my 30th birthday party all in smack bang in one. And then one of my friends said to me, why don't you do 2 nights? And I'm like, oh, okay. She's like, you're already here. I'm like, all right, I'll do 2 nights. And then I've got all these extra seats. I'm like, okay, well, let's open it up to the public and let's just do that as the Brisbane leg. Great, cool.
Okay, so originally you were just doing it for your family and friends and as a birthday extravaganza, right?
Yeah, it was going to be a private show, and we were going to record it. And the reason why I really wanted to create this amazing kind of experience is because the show, when you see it, is a show. And once I do this tour, I've got the next show lined up and it'll be something completely different. So as soon as I let this go, it's gone.
That's your hour.
Yeah. So I wanted something to remember it by. And I've also got very strategic reasons as to why I'm doing that way as well.
Yeah.
And you've been watching my journey for a little while.
I'm taking notice of the hustle.
The hustle is real. So I've got some plans with that as well, and some different avenues that could possibly go down depending on how it turns out. And that's the great thing about comedy and stand-up is you could have this whole planned out, from A to B kind of thing, but the audience is always going to be different on the night. The experience is always going to be different. You might run off on a tangent and come back. Like you just don't know. So there's this beautiful flexibility. And you kind of
chaos when you're up there on stage.
It's controlled chaos. Yeah.
So you're filming it, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're going to use this as a special of sorts and shop around after with this special? Is that what the vibe I'm getting here?
Yeah, that is the vibe you're getting here. I've been fortunate enough to make some amazing contacts when I went to America recently. And whether that is to shop it around in some look, it's not big names, so I won't say anything, but it has an opportunity to build a bigger and vast audience for me that I probably could not have ever done ever before. And whether that comes into fruition or not is, happens. But if I don't have the product, I don't have anything to give. So that was kind of where I came from. I'm like, well, make the product, make it the best you can, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
got a couple of options with that. We'll see what happens.
So how long have you actually been working on this material then for this hour that you've got coming up? Because I know people watch, say, Netflix, they'll watch a special, they'll see it for an hour and they're like, oh, they just went up there and did that. But, you know, we both know, you know more than I do, that it takes a lot more than that. And as a comedy fan, you know that you go to the open mic nights, you play the clubs, you use different portions of bits. Sometimes you only get 5 minutes to work out a little bit. And then maybe you do 15 minutes somewhere at a show, or you get a feature somewhere and you can do a bit more material and you can work it out, and then you cut it down and it's your baby. And sometimes you don't want to do that and you lose bits here and there, or you add to them obviously in shows, and some things just happen off the cuff. So what's been your process to come to this hour that you're about to film?
This has been a really great process. I've been doing comedy in terms of stand-up for probably a year and a bit now. Only a year and a couple. Two and a bit years. That's not 2.5 years. And when I started it, it came from a space. Actually, I was very strategic. So I just moved to Sydney, and it was completely to follow acting and film and all that kind of stuff, which I'm very passionate about and will always be very passionate about. And from that, I'm, I guess, in essence, just passionate with performing and creating and collaborating. So I moved to Sydney. I had a very successful fitness kind of career happening up in here in Brisbane, and was at the point where I was turning away classes and turning away gyms. And then you go down there and, you know, again, it's a reputation-based industry. I knew no one. So I came to Sydney with 3 waitressing jobs lined up, a room that I kind of had agreed to off a Skype internet call.
Doesn't seem dodgy at all.
Doesn't seem dodgy at all. Had no idea what my flat rates were going to be like. I had just no idea. And in my head, I thought, okay, the minimum term was 3 months.
Yeah.
So I thought, you just got to stick it out for 3 months, and then you can change that and what have you. So I rocked up. I had just come off, by the way, a month earlier before I knew I was moving, but I really cemented it in on this trip to Europe. So I just spent all my savings on a trip to Europe. I come back, decided I'm moving to Sydney. I pretty much had a month to get everything together. And I thought, if I don't do this now, it's not happening. Because I was in Brisbane. I had an agent that didn't really support me, who kept saying all the right things that just didn't push me in the right direction. And then I didn't feel confident in myself to push myself in the right direction. And I dabbled in bits and pieces, but was never of conviction, because I just thought, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And I got to a space where I thought, I need to submerge myself in a scene, in an industry, and it's just not here.
Yeah.
And that was just the reality. And after we worked on a big movie together, actually, is where we kind of met.
Where we met, yeah.
Yeah. And I had some opportunity with that, and I just missed out because I didn't fit the costume. That was a moment of, okay, I just had this moment of, if I actually had a name for myself, that wouldn't have been the reason.
Oh, for sure. But that's what happens in the industry, you know.
That's
the film
what happens
industry.
in the industry.
Yeah.
So I kind of went, right, all right. So if I really want to take this seriously, I can't do it here. I just can't. So what I decided, you could. It just depends on what road you want to go down.
Yeah,
I didn't want to go down the YouTube, Instagram, get known that way kind of route.
Yeah, unfortunately, that has a bit of a play in the matters these days, of people getting cast in bit roles and things like that with Instagram following. But you got to work the game the way you got to work it, right? And everybody's got a different lane and a way to do it and maneuver around it. So, yeah.
Oh,
and we could mention the big movie that we're talking about is Thor Ragnarok. I don't think that's any secret. The film's out. It's done.
It's done. We're in the Marvel universe. Did you know that?
That's right. As Guardians, right?
As Guardians.
Yeah.
We could actually be Googled as part of the...
Oh, yeah.
Someone told
IMDb,
me.
Yeah, I know. People are like, you're on that. It's just yeah.
I'm yeah.
We were way in the background, and I know for a fact that I didn't actually make any screen time, although people beside me did, but...
I was on that for many hours and many weeks.
It was amazing.
Guys.
That was an awesome experience. That was one of my best film experiences, actually. The amount of people that I met on that set and connected with, and then went on to actually work with down the track was amazing. But plus the opportunity of working on that was cool. And
yeah,
you meet Chris Hemsworth and a few of the other ones, and you see they're just larrikins, really.
Yeah, they're just people.
Yeah, exactly. But which is really refreshing to see, because not all actors are like that. But yeah, so anyway, you moved to Sydney.
I moved to Sydney, and 100% all in, and I shopped around for agencies and I went to interviews, and some people said yes and some people said get more, collateral behind you, so to speak. And I found this agent and I said to her, hey, because she was talking about I studied at NIDA, the screen acting, which is now I think a diploma thing that they've set up now.
So that was that 2 years that you did
2 years, which is where I met actually a couple of other friends of ours that some of them actually did Thor and everything. Anyway.
Yeah. And it's hard to get into NIDA as well. Like you actually have to audition.
You had to audition. We went through a process. It was a full day. Like it was full on and everyone's eyeing each other off because everyone wants it, right? Everyone wants it. And it was, and I loved my time there. I absolutely loved it. So I did that after I did my Bachelor of Photography degree, went down to Sydney, studied at NIDA, but I was young at the time, hated Sydney at the time.
Yeah.
I was doing a long distance relationship at the time. Like it was just messy, loved the study, hated where I was in life.
Yeah, the timing of everything didn't work quite at that point
I had no confidence in myself to do anything. So even though I loved the study, I was getting amazing feedback. I had incredible tutors that were just like I had some amazing tutors that gave me the most incredible feedback saying like, you've got this. Like if you push, you're great. And I'm like, I can hear them, but I can't feel it. And when you can't feel it, it's like saying to someone like the idea of going for a marathon, right? The idea of it is great. But if you have no passion and no heart to run, you are never going to do it.
Yeah, well, it's connecting those two things together is what really acting's all about as well. Like actually being truthful to the characters and connecting within you through what you're trying to do and playing that on screen. But so
I had the disconnect there. It was like my heart and everything that I yearned for in terms of entertainment, acting, creating, everything, wanted it, but my head was like, you're not good enough. This is not good enough. You're not going to make it, that kind of thing. So it was a complete disconnect.
Yeah.
I ended up relationship fell apart. I fell apart. I went back to Brisbane and rebuilt myself, both mentally, physically, emotionally, everything. And it took years and it took time. And I ended up getting into group fitness that way. And it was the biggest blessing in the world. Because people who meet me now, I come off as a very friendly extrovert. I can talk to anybody, anytime, etc. If you met me back then, I was petrified to jump on a stage in front of people.
Yeah.
I've been told by one of my most dearest clients who's been following me since the beginning, she said, she tells everybody, she's like, if you met Annisa in the beginning, she looked at the floor the whole time and you could hardly hear her. No eye contact. Couldn't hear her on the microphone, like nothing. And everyone's like, no.
Oh, well, stepping on stage is another thing. That's been one of my biggest fears is like public speaking and stepping on stage and talking in front of an audience. Like never learn. Acting was, for me, the stepping on stage and public speaking was a million miles step up from actually the acting thing, but the acting thing was a huge leap as well.
Yeah.
But so even without confidence within you, that's a scary process. Even when you have confidence.
Scary process. And I just thought to myself, like, if I can't conquer this, then there is no way I can conquer like the bigger dreams that I want for myself.
Yeah.
So it was the best place for me to start. It was probably the safest place for me to start. It was most challenging because when you're in a group fitness room, like they're all looking at you 100% of the time. Like every inch, every way you move, that's what they're, essentially doing themselves. So it was a very big eye-opening experience to what is transferred. Mm-hmm. And that is essentially the same with like acting and stand-up and all this kind of stuff is like the energy that you absorb or expel to the audience is what they will also absorb and expel to you. So that was a great skill set that I learned. I didn't realize, like in hindsight, it's like, oh my gosh, I did the most incredible thing to get me started in this way because I went to a space of having a stage with people, an audience who are showing up. Yes, they had like their expectation of what they were there for, but I could always add more. So it came to this space where I wanted to be entertaining. I wanted to be exciting for them. I wanted them to come back every day and every time that I was on the timetable.
Yeah.
And it took like time and years and sweat and tears and all that kind of stuff. But it got to a space where I was wanted and my classes were packing out and my clients were telling other friends to come and other friends to come. And it was just this incredible experience to the point where I got a comment once, I got 2 comments from some clients saying, because I was just constantly trying to make them laugh, because my experience in terms of the fitness and health industry was very different because I came from a background of being an overweight teenager, struggling through that. I remember going to the gym and just being like, I'm going to stand at the back of the room and I hope that fitness instructor doesn't look me at all.
Yeah.
Like I'm invisible. And knowing that's where I started and then eventually traveling my way up the front of the room to the stage, I wanted to make the same experience for the person who's confident to be in the front row for the same experience for the person who's in the back row.
Yeah.
I want them to be feeling so included in the experience. And through that, I found comedy was the way that I did that. So I started playing with things. Some things I pushed too far, some things, and I got feedback on that. And I just found this beautiful safe space in creating something that I knew was difficult, that I knew was challenging, that I knew was quite confronting for people to walk in to see like a fitness instructor. At that point too, I was like, started bodybuilding as well. And I knew that like muscle and lean and all this sort of stuff, like that's confronting to some people who are just like, I'm just here so that, I feel a little bit better about my week. So I used comedy as a way to really show that, one, I'm not all that. Like I'm not this, idealism that you see on the stage. I am human just like you and I have to go through this just like you. And then it sort of created this like harmony with everybody because it was like the mum standing next to the businessman standing next to like the teenager, and there's in their worlds they would never collide, but in this room they do. So how can they be, together as a team?
Yeah.
So I use comedy a lot for that. And
so was that within your fitness classes you using comedy?
Okay. I've been doing stand-up, no joke, like in terms of everything, in terms of short jokes, in terms of short stories, in terms of that. I have been doing stand-up for many, 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 many years.
Yeah. Just without the microphone in your hand, actually there trying to make people laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a different format.
Okay, so that was in Brisbane. You were doing that and you built your confidence back up.
Mm-hmm.
And so you started to get more back into your acting at that point?
Yeah, I started to get more back into my acting. And then we did Thor. And
that was 2015 or 16, I think. Was shooting Thor because I think it got released in 2017.
Yeah, it's 2016 then.
Yeah, I believe it was, yeah.
Yeah. And then I just remembered, because I hadn't had that experience in a long time, because I got some of that when I was in Sydney the first time. And then when I had that experience, I was like, oh my God, this is what I live for. This is what I live for. And I knew that this was what I lived for because we were on set and it was one of those days, it was just a long day and we were doing the same thing. As they all are, doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And I just heard this group of people, like in our extras sort of group, complaining.
Yeah, you get that, yeah.
They're like,
from the part-time extras, actors.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, do we have to do this again? Do we have to do this again? And it was getting on my nerves.
Yeah.
It was getting on my nerves to the point where I walked up to them and I said, I'm so sorry. And they're like, what? What did we do? I said, I didn't realize you were a volunteer.
You're getting paid to be here on a Marvel film and you're not at your normal 9-to-5 job. Quit complaining.
Yep. As soon as I said that, the girl looked at me and I knew she was just about, and then she went, fair point.
And you also had that Asgardian warrior uniform
on,
which was quite confronting because I remember seeing you before we met and you had the coolest outfit on. Like, people were in rags half the time. Some people got really cool outfits. It was kind of first in, first serve, or who you were and how nicely you talked to the wardrobe department.
Yeah.
Some of it was set out before we got there.
Yeah.
But I remember you had the cool like shoulder pads and, shoulder blade things going on. The breastplate. And you looked like a warrior goddess because you stood out. I remember seeing it before we met. And I always remember that. I kind of picture you like that.
I was doing this girl with breastplate and whip on set.
Yeah. They do things like that to you, yeah.
So that was hilarious. And I was the only girl with a weapon. And I was just like, this is so iconic. Like reflecting back again, it was like, that would had to be me.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't have the basket with the fruit in it. That wouldn't like.
Oh, yeah. I had a sword at one point and they gave it to the girl next to me. I was like, obviously you don't look like you're a warrior, my friend.
She's like holding her dad. So
it was hilarious. I think it was one of the stunt women, to be fair. But
okay, well, there
badass.
we go. Yeah.
Yeah, so she was protecting me, yeah.
So we did that and I just went, yeah, this is where I need to be. Like I was just so energized and we were doing such big days and we were driving back from the Gold Coast to Brisbane at like ridiculous times.
Yeah.
And I was just so pumped. I was so pumped to go to bed. I was so pumped to get back up again. I was so pumped to be there on set.
Don't sleep, yeah.
Like it was everything. And I was like, this is what I love.
Because that was a good, I'm pretty sure it was only for around a 3-month period almost, like on and off weeks, you know, but for a majority of it would have been 3.5 months, I think, all up in the end.
Yeah. I know I did a solid 6-month block. So 6-week block.
Yeah.
And then I had a couple of sporadic things. But it was on your mind for such a long period of time.
It was awesome. To be immersed in that for so long around that sort of people with your tribe, you know. I remember looking forward to driving down there every day. I was playing my tunes and just pumped.
Yeah.
Going down there, to set. And then you're like, leave. You know, you're going back there tomorrow. But when it finished, that sucked.
And it just felt so right that I walked away from that experience when it was over just going, I need the next fix. Like, what's the next fix? And to go back, and I love group fitness and it's, you know, it's something that I'm very passionate about, to get people together to be able to do something that's healthy and exciting, not only from a space of being physical, but from a space of mentality as well. To go back to that, I was like, oh, I love it, but I don't love it that much.
It doesn't quite light that fire within you that you want to keep burning and just really fan the
this
flames.
is a short time, not a long time kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I started tthinking, how can I get out of this? Like, what can I start doing? And the thing was, I wasn't really voicing that I wasn't happy either. It was getting to a point, I love group fitness. Like I loved, because it was a chance also for me to play, like and entertain and support and take them on this journey. Like I actually would plan out my classes to a T that my mum wouldn't say, how was your classes? She was like, how was the shows today?
Yeah. She knew you were up there performing.
Yeah. And she heard the feedback from people and how I changed their mind. And if I went away, it was like, oh my gosh, it wasn't the same. Like, where were you? It wasn't the same without you. I'm like, you just like me because I entertain you. Yeah, because I don't think about exercise for an hour. I just get entertainment. I'm like, yep, that's what I plan on doing.
So at some point there, you started writing or creating your short film for Trop Fest, which is where I feel is the catalyst to you getting into the stand-up comedy, and from the hustle that I've been watching is where it sort of progressed. And I know the steps. I've seen it, but everybody else doesn't know. So you did your Trop Fest film.
I did my Trop Fest film, and what that was that actually came out of a bit of spite. I had met some people on Thor and there was this nice collaboration going. There was this couple of let's do a Trop Fest film, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, let's get Annisa on board, blah, blah, blah. And there was this lovely back and forth conversation. It was very free flowing. And then after we finished filming, there was nothing. I heard from none of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, maybe they've decided not to do it, which is not uncommon for people to talk the talk and not walk the walk.
Yeah.
And then I hopped on Facebook one day and there it's we're filming our Trop Fest film, blah, blah, blah. Welcome, blah, blah, blah. Who's playing, blah, blah, blah. I'm like,
I think I know the ones you're talking about. we won't speak about it.
We won't speak about that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I thought that was my part. Okay, sure, sweet. I thought, Annisa, you could get bitter and spiteful about this and you could, huff and puff about it and bitch and moan, but what's the point? What's the
negative
outcome?
energy spent where you could be focusing it and putting it into something positive.
Exactly. And you would never get the outcome that you desire, which is to create something. So why don't you just create something?
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, Trop Fest was closing soon too. It wasn't a long time to get something in.
And for people that don't know, Trop Fest is probably the biggest short film festival that's in Australia.
It's in the world.
And very, world-renowned, right? It's one of the top ones. And so it's very hard to get into.
And it's very hard to get into. And it's, like the judging, I think, is what makes it so controversial as well, is because it's not necessarily the people who have the most professional short film that gets through. It's sometimes more about the message or the impact that message can create. So I knew, knowing that they weren't looking potentially for people with big budgets to create something, I'm like, okay, cool, I'm in with a shot here. I just need a really great concept. And it was about the time when like all the Bachelor hype was coming up and all this sort of stuff. And I thought, what would be...
Can't stand that shit.
It's got its place. It's got its place for people who don't have anything else to do.
Yeah.
But that's another story. Hey! I kind of went into like, how can I utilize this cross culture? How can I utilize and kind of... I started, like, a lot of my work and even in my comedy is about flipping perspective. So I thought, it looks like to everyone outside that these girls are so desperate for this guy, so unbelievably desperate for this guy, that they are willing to go on national television and essentially like fall in love with him over dates that have been manufactured by producers that he has had no input in whatsoever. That is not his personality, not his style, whatever. Like the whole thing, knowing from a film background, being a producer, how it works, knowing how it works. I'm like, this is the biggest facade. No wonder people, you know, don't stay together or whatever, because they actually don't know each other. Anything that it's been created.
No, they typecast personalities that they want to put on the show that's going to aggravate a certain person, that's going to make for good TV.
Yeah.
That one probably not so much as some of the other ones like that have been in the past where they actually cast actors. They have them on the casting sites that you and I are on, and you see them come up and it's like, oh my God,
and
I didn't know that was fake.
What? And they put it down as a credit. And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why did you put that down as a credit? But which I always find funny. So I thought, okay, I just don't like how this is going. Like we typecast women, like we already in society just have decided that women are crazy. And now we're perpetuating that notion even further and higher. And I thought, how much does it break a woman? And I kind of reflected back. I'm like, what is the process to get into this thing? I'm like, there would be an audition tape.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, well, in an audition tape, just like Instagram, just like Facebook, you only put the highlights. Like you never put the lowlights. So I thought, what if you put an audition tape together that was the lowlights of a woman applying for this, that she has got to that space in society's mind and eyes, that she is like, I don't know, barren all of a sudden, and she can never find a man. And the only way she can possibly do it is to be chosen to have a shot with 20 other women on a reality TV show.
Yeah.
And that's where I came into Reality Check, which is my short film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've seen it.
What do you think?
And you could. I thought it was awesome. You can see it on YouTube, right? Is it still on YouTube or not? Or
it is. No, it's still on YouTube. Yeah.
So it basically, from my memory, is you're filming your audition tape. You have a bottle of wine in front of you, and you're slowly but surely getting through that bottle of wine with everything else coming out, and you're like going through the decisions of whether you should do this. Oh, what's the best parts? What's not so best parts? Oh, this is about myself. And I don't know, do you end up in tears or not?
There's a bit where
it's more drunk tears, right?
It's more drunk tears. Emotional drunk tears.
Yeah.
But I think I make a really good point at the end about how much this image can really break not only women, but like an identity, you know, to be this perfect idealism that needs to be only seen in that light so that it's capable to have love, because that's what we're doing. It's like, this woman is so perfect, she should be with this guy. No, this woman is so perfect, she should be with this guy. Oh, this guy is so perfect. It's like, no, can we stop for a second? Can we replay this? We are getting to a space in society where the thing that we all desire the most, that we all think is so unbelievably precious, that's so unbelievably valuable, love. We talk about the love for our family, the love for our kids, the love for our partner. All I'm searching for is love, love, love. And now we're making it a joke.
And for everyone else's amusement, yeah.
Everyone else's amusement. And now all of a sudden our culture has changed to a point where we have dating apps and all this kind of stuff where everyone is perceived to be finding love, but they don't know what that looks like anymore.
Yeah.
Like when you have The Bachelor and things like that thrown in your face, where girls feel like they have to, that we already feel like we compete. Like that's just female nature. Like we have to compete for the man. Then you put it in a space where you actually are competing for the man. And not only that, the whole nation of Australia is deciding whether or not you're good enough for that person. That's effed up.
Yeah.
Fudge bucket up. That's what that is. So I just wanted to kind of, and you know, like in my past experience being younger, I'm not immune to that either. But I've just grown up a little bit and gone, guys, I'm fudging awesome. So if you want to make an effort, great.
Yeah.
And if you don't, great. Moving on.
Yeah, well, it's a funny thing. You touched on that a little bit with the relationships is what I feel that it's kind of controlled by the dating apps and things like that now. Socially, everything is sort of more it's easy to drop someone that you're dating and then go on to the next one now. It's not as hard. You don't have to put so much effort in. You're swiping. It's just there. It's more disposable relationships than actual genuine relationships a lot of the time that you come across.
Have you been to a buffet?
Yeah.
Do you stop eating?
I was in Vegas recently. That was amazing.
Can I say, do you stop eating when you're full?
No.
Do you know why?
I've put weight on recently because of that. What are you trying to say?
Do you know why?
I'm on a diet now,
do you know why? Because the buffet is there.
Everything's there right out in front of you. The dessert, straight away. You don't even need to eat first.
You know
Never
what?
alone your greens.
I got this plate, not really feeling it. I'm going to leave this plate here.
Yeah.
Someone else can pick it up.
Taking a nibble out of it, onto the next. Yeah.
I didn't see it. Did you see that over there? I didn't see that.
What's that? Oh, he's got Reality Check up there.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
So where you can find that? Oh, it's on your website.
It's on my website.
So let people know what your website is because that's where they can get everything from.
www.annisa.com.au.
Pretty easy. There you go.
Pretty easy. I'm sure Dan will put up my spelling.
That's right.
But yeah, that actually blew my mind, that short. It got
you got several acceptance there into film festivals. I can see. I can't quite read all of them.
Well, I got shortlisted for Trotfest.
Yeah. So did you make the last 16 or was it 32?
I didn't. I just missed out. So I got the section before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Thank you.
It's really hard to get to that point as well, never alone actually making the film in general yourself. And that's the other thing I might add is that you did all that pretty much by yourself.
I did everything myself.
Someone helped you with the edit and the sound, right? Because I do remember that, a female friend of yours.
Yes. I was a little bit stuck on Maxine, my friend.
Yeah.
I was a little bit stuck on I wanted this to be so right because I knew it was a great message.
You had something there.
I knew I had something there. And I just knew that knowing that it was me in the film and knowing that I wanted to create a really great message, I thought I need another pair of eyes on this because I'm always going to see, as much as I can self-remove, it doesn't matter. I'm going to see me.
Yeah.
As much as I can self-remove and see the character, I'm still going to pick the thing that makes me in my eyes look like me.
Yeah. Which is hard to get to that point too with looking at yourself on film, which is another thing you have to get over when you start acting as well and producing film, writing and everything. Is
everything.
Reviewing yourself and taking a critical point. It's a hard thing to get over. But once you get there, it's so much easier to look at everything and you're just like, no, not that, not that. And people say certain things, you're like, oh no, you're kind of saying that for a little bit of a bias because you know me and you want me to be happy with the answer that you're saying. Like you can be really real with it and that's a great place to get to.
My favorite is when I hear actors go like, when they walk off and they say to someone like, was that shit? And they're like, no, you were great. They were great. No, I know it was bad. I know it was bad. Just say it was bad. No, it was great. I'm like, this is not helping either of you.
Yeah. Growth.
Like,
it's how you grow.
Yeah.
Is by learning from your mistakes, obviously, in life and with creating as well.
Yeah. So I knew that like I could not get the authentic story that I wanted out. So I need another pair of eyes. And Maxine is an incredible editor. She's over now in Canada and that's what she does. which is fantastic.
Yep.
And I was so honored and blessed to be working with her in such a way. And just also like her edit would be different to my edit.
Yeah.
And like what she found funny, what I found funny. And it was kind of this beautiful collaboration marriage of what ended up being the end product, which
and
I
you find the synergy in between.
Yeah. And it's one of the things, it's one of the films I
almost want to see you with that bottle of wine at the end.
My favorite is when I like get drunk and I lift my shirt up and
you're like, whoa! Yeah, I vaguely remember this years ago.
I think I turned into a Tyrannosaurus Rex at one point. It's got a couple of thousand views, so please watch it.
Yeah, watch it. It's good. It's good for watch. How long is it? What, 5 minutes on a Trop Fest?
Six. I think it's
max,
6.5.
right?
Yeah, 7 minute max. And it's like Trop Fest is amazing. If anyone can go, it's incredible.
Yeah, I've never actually been. I'll have to.
It's the biggest short film festival in the world. Like I'm talking thousands of entries actually across the world.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, like most short film, even the little ones like come in, from all over the world as well. Like especially to Australia because it's like the little America. Kind of in a way, it's a little bit behind the times with America, but it's really right up there, even to the point where America references it in nearly every other film that you see out these days. Although they mimic the terrible accent sometimes, and I mean their terrible accent of trying to do the Australian one,
accent,
which is not easy.
G'day, you mate.
Oh God, there you go.
G'day, you mate.
But yeah, so you made
That's
that
not
film.
a knife. Sorry.
I'll show you a knife. So you did that and you got to the point you did with Trop Fest, which is amazing. And this is not too far before you ended up moving, but you started the web series, Elizabeth Dawson, right? From the character you created within that short film.
Yeah.
So this progression creatively, once again, doing a lot of it yourself.
Yep.
So that's how many episodes did you have of the web series?
I think I did 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that came from a space of I think people have this idea too these days. It's like you've got to create for clout. You've got to create for views. You've got to create for likes. You've got to create for this. And I knew that was a trap that creatives fall into.
I think everybody falls into that with social media the way it is these days. I've been guilty of it myself.
At some point, I love a selfie. Shoot me. But don't, because I love my face. Anyway, I just found that I was very aware of creating, not getting feedback, because when you create and you put it out there, you do get feedback. So there is this opportunity to get better. And I knew that doing the series was not going to be a viral sensation or anything like that. It was simply an exercise for me to follow through on creating consistently.
And seeing it through to the end. Because I meet so many creatives and I get lost in that sometimes, or I never wanted to get lost in that, where I meet amazing, brilliant creators, but they don't have the work ethic. So they're like, oh my God, I'm going to start this. Oh my God, I'm going to start that. Oh my God, this is amazing. And you can see the glimpse of whatever they're trying to create. And I'm like, yes, that is going to be so good. And then all of a sudden I talk to them again, catch up. How's that? Oh, no, I didn't start it. Yeah, work got in the way. I got a girlfriend. I got a boyfriend. This happened, that happened. And then it just falls on the wayside. And all of a sudden you're falling out of love with the creative passion that you had.
You're like,
and you're living that normal life that you dreaded before.
I'll just become a sheeple. I was very wary of that. So I decided I didn't really know anyone in Sydney at that time. I was still building networks and I didn't know where I fit. And it was that point that I'd also started dabbling in stand-up. And I thought, okay, I'm going to create this series so that I can learn from myself.
Yep.
And I can follow through on a character and I can edit and I can, go from A to B and try and create something as a body of work, because that's what I was kind of used to that from doing photography, studying at art college and creating my pieces and my series and cutting down and chopping and changing and having to shift direction, all that kind of stuff. So I was very wary of how that work ethic looked, but to create it in such a way of film, knowing that I had something with the character because the character was doing well, the character was great.
People that they were getting something from watching it. Yeah, they were getting emotionally invested in the character. Yeah,
I had lots of people message me going, I want to see more of her. And I thought, okay, let's try that.
Yeah.
It's I watched back on some of it recently and, it's not the greatest. I had concepts written out for everything. It's not a set out script format because of the timing I had. I was working so many jobs just to get into my feet, trying to build my reputation in group fitness because I wanted to go back to that because I knew it. So it was really easy for me to then do again. And I was in that space. So I was just kind of like, okay, what time do I have? How much time do I have? What can I create? I had my beautiful co-producer, Nicole, and great friend come on board and sort of help me with bits and pieces and give me some feedback and would watch the edits and would ask me the tough questions like, what message are you trying to get through this episode? What are you trying to get through this episode? And even though it's comedy, it's very light. It's pretty much a how to dating app series, really, from a single person that is very unsuccessful in the dating app series. Like,
just always hilarious to watch.
It's just always hilarious to watch.
I'm sure people see themselves in there a little bit. You know, we've all done it before. We've all had the hilarity of that, and that's what makes good stand-up too.
Yeah. So I kind of did that as a way to explore that, and I'm so grateful I did because it's a body of work that even now, again, it doesn't have the views or whatever. I don't care about that.
No,
it's something
you
that
you saw it through to the end, the creative process, and you have an end product that you can be proud of.
Yeah.
And you put out there for people to watch.
And I put out there and it's entertainment and I can't be more proud of myself for doing that process. So that's kind of that.
And you took a lot of it in yourself. So that's a huge thing. And that's the one thing about the film industry that's amazing when you're creating with a whole bunch of people and you come together and you're using different creative personalities and the way they see it, and that's creating art. And that's an amazing thing. But also the flip side of that is having to depend on certain people to come through with certain processes of, say, sound or edit, which people wouldn't know. With in the background, there's maybe a set with 2 actors, but could be 10 other people behind them plus or less. Sometimes you're working with the skeleton crew, which generally is how it goes in the indie game.
Yeah.
And sometimes they fall off last minute or the gear doesn't come through or this and that, and you got to roll with the punches when you're doing the indie circuit. That's the way it goes. But yeah, so you created that, you did your web series, and you were still in Brisbane at that point, right? The whole thing was created in Brisbane.
No, that was in Sydney.
Okay, it was.
So yeah, I moved.
You did a few episodes here though, didn't you? Because you had like Mikey Wolf on and.
No, I did. That was with my beginning of my podcast. I had him on. Oh, that was more. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, they were little. Series,
they were like, so I did little scenes.
Yeah.
So I wanted initially before I left, because again, I was trying to figure out how could I possibly get stuff up and running, and I hadn't worked out kind of if I was leaving, if I wasn't, if that was even a thought process in my head. Again, I was still in that space of I'm scared to do this, but I really want this.
Yeah.
And I thought, how can I get what I want out of the experience, which is new show reel stuff essentially, and get other people on board as well. Yep. So I wrote these little scenes from this character's perspective, and I thought this would be great because what I can do is I can get amazing creatives who, haven't had the opportunity to get more playtime, so to speak, together, and we'll just keep it like simple 2-shot, maybe wide shot, that kind of thing, and I can edit it together and give them an opportunity to have a scene.
Yeah. Okay.
So I did a couple of those actually, which was great, and then it just came down to like timing and people not being available, and then obviously I decided to move.
Okay, so you elaborated on that with the web series afterwards, is that right? Or is that was all included? Yeah, okay. So you did that in Sydney as well, and then so where did stand-up comedy come into all of this? Because I feel like it's developed from that. Because you might as well say now, what's it called? Your special that what's the show called?
My show is called Dear Future Ex-Husbands.
There you go.
It was very strategic. Did
Annisa come up with that? Or is that more Elizabeth Dawson sort of?
Oh, no. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to say.
That was it. Initially, my first stand-up gig actually was at the Semi-Pro show, and I didn't know this. And I wrote it as Elizabeth Dawson. Okay. Because I hadn't quite figured out where I would sit in comedy. And the reason why, this was before I even started open mic. Yeah. Like I just kind of went like, how did I get this gig? Because there was some amazing, I think actually Becky Lucas was headlining that one. So I was like, no one knows me. How did I get 5 minutes. Like,
Yeah, that's pretty awesome to get, because even open mic nights are hard to get into, especially
yeah. So it was at a place called Friend at Hand, which I really enjoy and love in terms of a venue, and I will be back there soon. So yeah, I just don't know how that happened. I think it was a great taste. So I ended up getting some great feedback, and I got great laughs, which was fantastic.
So was that off the cuff where you did develop some
No,
material for that?
I wrote a whole thing. Like I went actor's approach on that and wrote a whole thing.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And I thought, this is fantastic. Like this is an opportunity, because this is how, again, I am so entrepreneurial mindset. Like I've got a few things going on. I run a few businesses, and I'm always very wary of there's the creative, which is fantastic. But if you can match the creative with the entrepreneur or the business, boom, magic happens. Because what the creative lacks, which is usually work ethic, the entrepreneur can pick up.
Yep.
And what the entrepreneur lacks, which is usually like out of the box quick thinking, the creative can pick up.
Yeah, and they would play off the back of each other.
And they would play off the back of each other. And what I found I was doing for such a long period of time was, again, that comes from my childhood, but I thought I had to separate both of them. So I had to be either creative or I had to be the entrepreneur.
Okay.
I couldn't be both. And when I came to Sydney, I thought I'm putting myself on the line here. I'm packing up a car. I'm putting everything that I possibly own. I'm driving it down. I actually was leaving the car back up in Brisbane for my brother and sister. So I didn't have a car essentially as I get started. I don't have money. I'm doing waitressing jobs to get by. How can I possibly get more experience in my field that I want to be doing, which is acting, with no money?
Yeah, especially trying to set yourself up in Sydney in another place is a hard task when you don't know a lot of people as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that just before I left, I think it was the week of my last set of classes, or the week or two before, one of my clients, who was a very regular client of mine, came every week without fail, was like always there on time, never spoke to me. When I said that I was moving, said, "Are you going to try stand-up in Sydney? Because you should be doing stand-up." And I was like, "Oh, no, that's a silly idea."
That's a far-fetched statement.
What? And I thought, that's not a bad idea. And then it so happened that the same week, another one of my clients at a boot camp that I ran said to me, "You know what? As much as you've got dad jokes, they're pretty funny. You should do stand-up." It's like, what's going on? Then the same time that week, I think it was on the weekend or something, I was just with friends, and I was just being my normal self. I like to be funny in conversation. It's just something that I think I developed from very high school years and that kind of thing. Like, that's how people like you, be funny.
Yeah, defense mechanism sometimes as well, yeah.
So I was at this thing and I was chatting away, and there was a girl that didn't really know me. It was a friend of a friend. And she goes, "You're so funny. You should be a comedian." And I didn't think any of those statements. Like, I didn't even think about it. That was
just
three times just before.
Everything happens in threes, and that's the rift in the space-time continuum.
And I came to Sydney and I thought, I have no money. How can I possibly perform? How can I get feedback? How can I write and do it all for free? Open mic.
How did you do it?
Open mic.
Yeah.
Open mic. So I actually, I'd hope they don't mind me name drop. No, actually, I won't name drop. I'm not that person.
You can name drop. It's okay.
No.
Good to boost the podcast up a little bit. We should add this is the first episode that Annisa is gracing us with her presence.
Yeah, there'll be like 25 more of just me on this podcast. You know that, right?
Yeah. I'm okay with that.
I'm coming back. I actually messaged a well-known Australian comedian who I knew did stand up in Sydney, and I asked them, like, I'm so new to Sydney, I'm just moving, where would be the best stand-up spots, etc. Not thinking that they would actually message me back. I was just putting it out there. I was doing my research. There were so many that I could see that I wasn't in, so I didn't know. And I went to a couple of open mics and everything, and I just didn't really know where would be a good place to start. Because, again, I'm always strategic. I'm like, I want to learn. I don't want to be there because I'm going to get like a friendly clap from people who I want to learn. And that person told me mic in hand. And I was like, okay, cool. So I messaged mic in hand and applied through their thing, and they looked me up and they found my short film.
Of course they did.
And they were like, we'll give you 5 minutes.
Here's a bottle of wine on entry. So, what can you do?
And they're like, no, we did research on you. We did research. I was like, okay, cool. Because I was like,
yeah, that's awesome. So is that quite a renowned club in Sydney for open mic nights? And
it's known.
Yeah.
It's known.
Yeah.
It has like headliners that are paid. So for those, I should probably say, for those of you who aren't in the comedy world, and particularly with stand-up, you have free open mic rooms, which is usually like 4 or 5 minute sets.
And that's still hard to get into.
And that's hard to get into because it's not, there's only a couple of places now that usually do sign-ups on the night. I don't know what it's like in Brisbane.
You have to call through, as I will tomorrow, and you have to go on the phone, and you've basically got 5 minutes to try and get through, or you've lost all the spots.
Really?
So you're not on hold. It'll just cancel out. You just keep calling, call. And if you're not really in within the first 2 minutes, you're not going to get a spot.
Yeah.
Because they do it in tiers of about 4 or 5, and starting off in certain groups, there's about 2 spots. Say like what's Newmarket Hotel, was it? Yeah. And Waterloo just down the road, which is where I made my comic debut. And
when do they
Stone's Corner, that is like
when do they do open mics?
Yeah, it was
when did they all on?
No, that was literally
we should go do one tonight.
The third time. When is it? Monday nights is Newmarket, I believe. It was a Thursday night?
Call up someone and be like,
he's going to look it up for us now.
Let's do this because I thought we weren't allowed to mention our side guy.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a side guy, guys.
He's just side guy.
Side guy.
He's both of our side guys.
Side guy he's amazing. He does the Googling.
Yes, he does.
Side guy, I think we should go out and do stand-up
It'd be awesome, but this is what I'm getting at. They book it in 3 weeks in advance. So if I called up tomorrow, I'm likely to not get a gig till the end of January, maybe early February would be the first dates, unless that's when you're starting off. But when you're in the other tiers of the group, they already know you from going up. Yeah. Then you got the option of probably about 3 or 4 places, different spots. But it fills up so goddamn quickly. So that's the process here anyway with the Sit Down Comedy Club. Yeah. It is quite hard. I think it's only just starting back up this week or next week. So those spots I'm sure will be filled. But who knows? You could say Annisa B's coming.
Guys, I sold out Sydney Comedy Festival last year.
Well, there you go. I think you just kind of name dropped a little bit there. But yeah, so okay, and the mic. What's it called again? Sorry, the Sydney Club.
There's Friend in Hand. Yeah. Which is and then I did that, and I thought I kind of liked it, and I enjoyed that experience, and I got the feedback, and I thought I like this, but I don't like it how I did it.
Okay.
So it was a different experience again, because I had just to backtrack a little bit. I developed Elizabeth Dawson into actually a short and sweet.
That's what we did miss out, and
no, it's all good.
Short and sweet film, short and sweet theatre festival.
Yeah, stage play.
Yeah, which was a one-woman show once again. So that's the third tier of development.
Thank you, thank you kindly. I think it just came down to the fact that I learnt very quickly that I was serious about this game, and I didn't know anyone that was as serious as me, and and I don't want to throw shade on anyone, but it just came down to that fact.
No, you always stood out as a hard worker, even in the early days of me actually meeting you. I could see that straight away. I was like, I'm going to keep an eye on her.
Keep an eye. Where's she going?
What's she doing?
Yeah. So I did that, and that did well, and got People's Choice for that. And then did that in Sydney as well.
I did not know. So there you go. Well, I may have known and forgotten because there's so many accolades coming in at the moment.
Oh, good. These things I know will mean more to me than my Oscar is all I'm saying.
I like how you're putting that out there in the stratosphere right now.
Oh, that's what I'm aiming for. It's not necessarily the Oscar in terms of the trophy. It's what that Oscar in terms of...
The critical acclaim that can come from it.
Yeah. So there you go. Everyone knows now. Yeah. That's what I'm reverse engineering. But you've got to, if you don't dream big, if you don't go to that next level, you will never get halfway. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you don't go out of the stratosphere for this, you are not even going to get off the ground.
Swinging for the fences.
Amen.
Can't,
Amen.
Yeah, if you don't swing for the fences, you may never hit that home run. You're just bunting to first. What's that going to do?
Exactly. And what happens if you miss first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You strike out, you come back, you learn from it, you grow, and then you come back again.
If you're determined.
That's right.
And not many people are.
Yeah.
So I did the short and sweet, and that was great. And I got amazing feedback for that. And I kept rewriting that. And then that's kind of how Elizabeth Dawson, in terms of her character, got created.
Yeah.
And then I did this open mic, and I did it as Elizabeth. Not open mic, but at this comedy show, and I did it as Elizabeth. And I walked off, and I'm like, I don't want to be Elizabeth on stage like that. That was just it felt good to produce my work, but it didn't feel good to be that person. And it was a specific character, and I'm like, I don't want to be that on stage.
You want to find your own true self up on that stage.
I wanted to be the crazy group fitness instructor.
Yeah.
Like, not in terms of group fitness, but in terms of the essence of what I did in group fitness. I wanted to bring that to comedy.
The stage,
yeah. So
Back to the Notebook.
Back to square one.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know who this person was. I didn't know what I looked like in stand up. I didn't know how to explore that. And I was very lucky that I contacted, because someone said to me, jump on, a Facebook group like Open Mic Sydney or whatever. And I got accepted into that, and I got to see all the open mic rooms. And again, it's also sign up before. And I did that, and there was a particular room called Magic Mike.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now it's getting interesting.
Yeah. And run by Anthony Skinner. Hey, Skinner, you shout out to you. He's a big player. He'll love that. He'll be like, yeah.
First shout out on the podcast. Anthony Skinner.
And he started Magic Mike, and kind of it felt like a safe and warm place for people to play. Like, it was really good. And rocking up, being the only girl there, like sometimes several weeks in a row.
Okay,
and
out of 15 comics, 10 comics?
Yeah, about 15 or so. And also coming from a space of judging me, like, there's a comic on the scene who's a good friend of mine now, who said, like, when I met you and you said you're an actor, I was like, oh.
Another one.
None of one of the, like, watch her disappear. Yeah. Watch her disappear. And I was like, no, motherfucker, I'm here to,
yeah.
Sorry for swearing. But
no, it's welcomed.
It's welcomed.
It's fine.
Anyway, and now he's like, he's mentioned to me several times, he's like, you're like the coolest chick I know. Like, you get in there, you give it, like, you're always there to support one another. I don't understand this competition that exists in the creative world, because the whole purpose of being creative is that you have something unique and a vision and an idea and a way of producing that is so unbelievably you that you want to share, because no one can do it like you. So there's space for everyone. Yeah. Therefore, there's like space.
The only person you really should be competing with is yourself.
Exactly.
To get better. Every single time.
But there's this competition that exists. And I get it. In entertainment, everyone wants to be on top. Everyone wants to be top dog. Everyone wants to be seen. Everyone wants to be heard, because it is their work. I just hated it, and I didn't really want to buy into it. So I met some amazing comics, and some of them, like my opener, Sam Menzies, who's incredible and a really fantastic and amazing friend of mine. And I'm so excited to go on tour with him this year. He was one of the people that was like, pretty much when I sort of voiced my, again, I'm building myself back up as a person. And I'm very new to the scene, like disgruntled concerns about like, oh, where do I really fit? Like, what do I need to do? And I don't know if I want to play that game. And he's like, fuck them. Just do you.
Yeah.
You do you. He's like, it sounds stupid and bizarre and what everyone puts on Instagram. But he's like, honestly, you do you, you'll find your audience. I was like, okay. So I played, and he challenged me to play, which, is great. And we've had great conversations about work and writing and his work as well. And just, we never tell each other what to write or what to say or concepts. It's more, we will always challenge each other with questions and where we want to take things and what's the integrity of things and why do you want to say this.
Yeah. To just explore the themes further with what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
And seeing it from another perspective, obviously, with like showing someone your work with the film as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I came from a space of like having all this input from, from what I gathered from group fitness and what I gathered from theatre and what I gathered from film and dancing for so many years as well. And I had this idea of a stand-up show and I thought, no one's going to see this coming.
Which is the best part.
Which is the best part.
Shock awe.
And I knew I needed an opener and I knew exactly who I wanted. I knew I wanted Sam. And by then I had started to be very strategic with, and I'm not saying this is for everyone because there's this methodology in some people's head, which I totally get and I understand to a point, that if you're not going to open mics like every day, every night, 2 times a night, 3 times a night, if you're not making your whole week around open mics, then you're not a comedian. You're not doing it. Essentially what I learn't from that was I need to practice often.
It's like working out in the gym.
Yeah. What I think
Just
a lot of them
getting those reps
didn't
up.
know that I was doing already was I was practicing often. I was practicing more than they were.
Yeah.
Because I get to do 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute, 5 minute, 45-minute sets in front of an audience.
And is this the fitness class is what you're saying? Yeah.
6 times a day.
You take it wherever you can. I remember hearing a podcast with Joey Diaz and Joe Rogan, and they were talking, well, Joey Diaz was mainly talking about it at a point where he was coming up and they were doing karaoke nights and he had signed up for the karaoke nights and he would just rock up there and start doing comedy and everybody's like, what the fuck is going on? We're here to watch karaoke or someone sing and he'd just keep going and people would throw food at him or whatever. But it's just a spot. It's a chance to get up with a mic with an audience, and that's what people don't understand is when you're working out your material, you need that audience. You can't do it in front of a mirror at home. You can try, but it's not going to work right. What are you going to do? Make yourself laugh? Like you're feeding off the audience, they're feeding off you.
Yeah.
You need to see what works and you're working it out for yourself. And that's what comes with those open mic nights early on, which of course you know.
Yeah.
And it comes to getting those bits that actually work and you throw this out, you put this in, you add that tag in, whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And that's where you come up with your routine.
Exactly.
And
So I got to refine and really decide concepts in the way of saying things and testing different words and that kind of thing. Obviously not swear words or PG-13 plus,
that
repertoire.
boring comedy.
But I was in a space of rehearsing regularly and frequently. And just because I was being so meticulous as to which rooms I went to and why I went to them and when I was doing them, I was challenged several times on I haven't seen you in weeks. Where have you been? I'm like, well, I've been working my butt off. And then I do a set. Oh, that was a great set.
Haven't heard that one. Yeah. So you were going around. How many comedy clubs would you say you were doing with the open mic nights? Like how much have you got available to you there?
Oh, tons.
I
must admit, Sydney's there's a couple too that have opened up and a couple of friends of mine have now started running rooms and things like that. And it's really exploded in that way. Like if you want to do comedy in Sydney, there is absolutely no way unless you are so unbelievably terrible that you have run through every room and no room runner wants you back. Yeah. But by the time you've run through every room, surely you have something.
You've got better. Yeah. You've got 5 minutes there that work.
Right?
Yeah. You found your crowd.
So there's this beautiful opportunity that comes to open mic and being able to do comedy in Sydney, which is fantastic. And, and the better you get at it and the more people get to know you and that kind of thing, you get to have more opportunity with that because room runners obviously want to create a good room, even though you do want open micers on. And again, it's one of those things where the audience don't get to think about it, but the room runners have to. If you're doing an open mic, you need to make sure you have essentially some pros testing new material. You need to have some newbies and you need to have some that are kind of midway in the game because that makes a great show. Because if you had all first timers in a show, and people are coming to sit, you'd lose an audience after the first 2 people. You wouldn't have anybody in there. Yeah.
You'll be surprised here. The first time I went up was a bunch of it was my first time I was up and I got put up first as well to open the show. Yeah, it was Tristan was there supporting me. And that was when the Waterloo was the second night they'd ever done it there. And there was a decent one because we went it was the third and we went to the second one and there was probably maybe 15 people the first time. And then the second time was probably maybe 20, 25.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it was a good turnout for the second or third time in the room.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a few people up there, and I'd been working on my material for months beforehand, because I'm not going to go up there with nothing. I've got things that I'm going to go to if it doesn't go well. But the problem was for me was trying to find what I wanted to put and cut what I didn't want to go up there with. And for me, the comedy that I really enjoy and that I love is the storytelling, the long-winded stories, which doesn't always work with every room or anything. It's more, which I learned after the second time I went up. But the first time was mine. I basically had like a 7-minute little set, but it was all one story. And I had to cut it down to, you get 5 minutes, 6 minutes per se, you could say. And I did it, I'd right on the time. And it's all like a funny like sex story that I sort of had, that I met through a chick in the acting class, and it went to this stage, and just the hilarity of things, staying with the mind playing off of things going on in the situation, and I got a little animated, but it was, there was 3 occasions when I went up and the MC was laughing the hardest. I had him like, there was 3 that I distinct, because you just hone in, you've got that light so bright on your face. Yeah, because I was like, oh shit, I don't even know if I'm going to be seeing people's faces, what's going to go on. Because I was petrified of speeches at school. I did not want to go up. So the turn that I've come from doing acting and then comedy and stuff. So this was like a kind of bit of a final frontier for me, going up on stage trying to be funny, which is another thing itself, other than just talking in front of people and all with the mic. It's
not even that too. It's the fact that people are there and their intention of being there is make me laugh.
Yeah. Yeah,
like
you're entertaining me. What do you got? Yeah, and so I did my long-winded story, and I got a few laughs. Mainly the MC was laughing, like not huge, like I didn't kill, nothing like that, but I didn't bomb. But I think I remember a few of the moments where more louder than the laugh was the, because they couldn't believe what the hell I was saying and what was coming out of my mouth. I had them, it's what he said he was watching.
Sideline guy is like smiling and smirking. Like
and that's what the guy was running the show from the Sit Down Comedy Club, which was, doing the time and everything and doing the intros. Apparently he said he had a smile on his face the whole time, because he's just like, oh shit, like here we go. And but there was one like real, like, quite rude sort of crude thing that I like was saying, and I remember hearing the whole audience go, like you could hear that through but everybody do it at the same time. So it was more suspense. I had them in suspense the whole time. I was like, what's the crazy shit going to say next, And I found out the second time I went up, which that was all a bunch of beginners, basically. And there was maybe a few guys that had done it regularly further on later in the night, just to get everyone up. But the second time was, I went up third, and I had to follow, it was all experienced comics, and I was the beginner, and I had to follow a kid that was very flamboyantly gay, and he had Asperger's.
Right.
And so he had a lot of material to pull from, and he killed. And I had to go up after him. And I had changed my act at this point. I did about 3 like minute and a half kind of bits to try and see how that would work. And I was more confident up there the first time than I was the second, because that was a huge contrast of changing to go to that. And I found a lot out. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to go back and I'm going to have to rework this material. I need something. I was trying to run before I could walk, per se, with the long-winded stories. I hadn't earned that time yet of the people to laugh with me the whole way through, because with the story, which comes with being an experienced comic, I need something short and punchy at the start for the first couple of minutes to get them on my side, and then can go into the story kind of thing. But that was my experience anyway. But continue with your story. I just sort of got a bit sidetracked there. I just wanted
to reframe and sort of say on this podcast for anyone that's listening is that I'm not an experienced comic yet. Like, yes, I've been doing this for over 2 years, but in my opinion, I am still a beginner. Like I have had the opportunity to meet and be on stage actually with people who are 8 years plus in the game, and that is next level.
Oh, yeah.
And that is experience. And that is knowing how an audience moves and just being able to like just use them like puppet strings. It's like a conductor. It's beautiful to watch and it's hilarious to listen to. But yes, so just so everyone knows. This is me. But I'm still humble in knowing
doing
that
well to have an hour worth of material, and like you kind of hinted at so subtly before, that you have sort of another almost hour of repertoire, you know, like sitting there behind. So that's awesome. But so you were working your bits 5 minutes at a time. Were you getting little feature gigs here and there where you could do 10 to 15 were you to work out your bits a bit longer?
I was really lucky that I think a couple of people kind of saw what I was trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And I would get laughs, but it was also the difference between an open mic room and then going into more like your semi or your next space up, where like a headliner gets paid and you do your like the 5 minute warm-ups.
Bringing you on to open up,
is that like an open mic is only ever going to be, unfortunate but true, but people who have just dropped in because they're like, I've got time to waste and I'm just going to sit here, or it's a friend of one of the comics or friends of one of the comics. So they're always going to be biased towards who they're there to support, which is fine. And that's how people should support one another. But it's never a good indicator of your audience, because your audience, and I was reading Audience of One, which is a fantastic book, and I highly recommend it for any creative. It talks a lot about writing for the audience of one, which is you. Because if there's someone like you, if there's you, then there's someone like you. And that someone like you has someone like them, etc. So you will find your audience, but you have to write for the audience of one. And there was a period when I first started where I didn't really have my feet in comedy. I didn't really know, and still it's going to grow and develop. And I actually know what my fourth show is. I'm that far in advance. I actually know what that looks like, and I know how I want to conduct myself in that show. And I know as a comedian and as a entertainer, I am not at that skill set level yet, which is why I've reverse engineered it. But that was really important for me to know what I want to look like. But when I first started out, I don't know what I look like as a comedian. I know what I look like as an actress, and I know what I look like as a filmmaker. I know what I look like as a photographer. I know what I look like as a dancer. But when I'm in a new environment like this, I don't know where my feet is. And when you talk about stand-up, and it's sometimes I think some people get caught up with, oh, this is that person. No. In stand-up, you are either a heightened version of yourself or you are actually a character. Yeah. People don't understand that. It's the stuff that we write this stuff the way that we write it because part of us wants to say it in a public.
Break out.
Because we wouldn't say it in a public setting. There would be no need.
You would be judged on several occasions, but at this point, it's okay to say these things from this different viewpoint of the world.
If you had the need to say it in any other setting, then you wouldn't be saying it on a stage. You'd just be that person out in life. Yeah. But, people are strategic in that way in terms of entertainment, and that's why we do the stand-up the way that we do it, and that's why we have the discussions the way that we have the discussions. Like when you talk to stand-up comedians after shows or whatever, some people even get disappointed because they're like, oh, that wasn't that person on stage, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I was expecting that 24/7.
Yeah. And it's not that way. It's like asking, it's like asking a wrestler, like a WWE wrestler, to be on all the time.
Like, you ready for this choke slam?
No, it's just not how it works. Or even like, even to ask a doctor to be on all the time, there's a reason why they go home to their families and they be someone else. Like, you can't ask that of people. And sometimes I think audiences can get caught up with that is that person and that is what they're saying and that's what they believe. And sometimes yes, and sometimes no. Sometimes we write it because it's fucking funny.
Just needs to be said.
Just needs to be said.
Yeah.
Like if you're someone who's like, oh, that person must believe that, they could not, but just enjoy the joke or the writing for what it is, because that's what it is. It's like saying a fantasy novelist, for example, believes that world exists in today's reality. It's like saying
well, they have to go to that place sometimes to actually write. Like, they believe it in their own mind. That's where the imagination comes from. That's why it's so real for somebody reading it or watching it, or however, if it gets developed into a movie.
Yeah, you have to see it.
They're in that place at the time, but then they come out of it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, they've reached into that point in their mind where that is very real for them and they can just write that way. And then you can feel when the writing starts to go a bit bad, you're like, okay, I'm out of it. Like I need to step away. I need to refocus, re-energize, and then come back and take it again.
I can't see Tolkien running around the streets yelling out my precious and looking for a ring with a stick and asking where the hobbitses are.
You don't know. He probably has cash now. You know, you might have a Lord of the Rings backyard. I would if I had that cash.
But do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like, yes, you do have to take your mind to that space, and yes, you have to believe it to some point. But we understand that those points aren't real.
Yeah.
You know, I've met some comics that do very, in my opinion, very offensive work.
Yeah.
And I meet them off stage and they are lovely, lovely people, but they've decided that that is their character.
That's their thing, yeah.
And that is their thing and that is their entertainment and that is what they want to do and pursue.
So when you say offensive, is it more dirty material or is
No,
it
I think offensive as in
racial or
more the only thing that I would ever find like that you've pushed the boundary too far is there's like no-go areas in comedy, but even then people push those boundaries, which is
and that's kind of what comedy's about though too, to a certain extent.
But I think like we got to a point now where you got to also work with your audience. Like if your audience is
not vibing with that material, you have to switch it up pretty damn quickly and have something else ready to go.
Yeah. And there's certain things, even like, and I'm not saying male comedians, I'm saying female comedians. There's things that I just find now just obnoxious and offensive. And I'm like, this is terrible because it's cheap laughs, or worse, it's just you're making the audience uncomfortable and therefore they're laughing because they want to get through this discomfort.
Which is an interesting point, because I think this comes up on a lot of podcasts that I listen to, or with people generally talking to them and friends of mine, or they're like fans of comedy, is sometimes, and I'm trying to say this without having a massive backlash, but
this is podcast
some guys can't watch female comics. They just don't find them funny. And there's it's sort of like, it'll never be, and it could be vice versa for females watching some males, and little ticks that I think personally is sometimes they can't see the woman up there with power on stage and they can't believe it or see the things that they're saying from that standpoint.
Yeah.
Some of them can get really over sexual with certain premises or what they're doing. But there's, I don't know, it's an interesting thing. Do you find that there's males that you're like, you know, some like, do you prefer female comics over male comics, or you just like comedy because when it's good, it's got a good, it shouldn't really matter, male or female, whoever's going up there, they've got a good act, they've got good jokes, they've got good premises, whatever they're trying to say, there's always a story to be told. It's funny. It's just funny. But there's an have you had guys say that to you when they've been intimidated on you on stage or anything like that? Or
I mean, I've had a few different experiences. I think the one that resonates with me the most, which is what you talk about, is that I have had guys come up to me afterwards and say, pardon me, I'm about to burp. Here we go. There we go.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So this actually, that was perfect timing, because this brings into what I was about to talk about, is that I've had guys men who have come to audience, like as a part of the audience, and have come up to me afterwards and have said, I don't find females funny, but I found your set hilarious.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
And I'm like, awesome. And they're like, you're really funny. Thank you. That's what I was
surprised.
like, oh God, I was trying to be dramatic and I came to a comedy show. But yeah, so I do get that. I get a lot of, actually after my show at Sydney Comedy Festival, I would get the men, the husbands and the boyfriends afterwards coming up to me going, oh my gosh, now I understand why my girlfriend does that. Or now I understand why. And so it was coming from that space. And I think the thing about my comedy, or the way I like to present myself, is I want to be a strong female force, but I don't want to intimidate either men or women. And I think sometimes I've noticed with some female comics, and I'm not saying all, but with some female comics, they come from a space of like, I'm a, badass bitch, this is like my empowerment moment or whatever it might be, which is fine. If that is your art, amazing. Go with it. Enjoy it. Blah. But please use it in the context of what you're delivering it in. If it's comedy, it's
not getting lost in the message or
it's got to be funny.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Like if you want to have a,
do a piece rally. You could.
If you want to have a poem and something poetic, please go do a poem open mic night or whatever. But I think there's this thing of like, because I'm shocking, I am funny.
Yeah.
No. And because I'm demeaning myself, I am funny. No. There are like, self-deprecating humor can be like hilarious, and I use it on occasion as well. But you can come from a space of using that to your advantage and really flipping it, but then it can come from a space of like, sounds terrible, but the audience actually feeling sad for you.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, is that their life?
Yeah.
Like
you've gone too far with what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
You need to work it back into comedy. Evidently, that's what you're up there to do. Yeah.
And it sounds like I'm talking from a professional space.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm always humbled in knowing that I am still learning. I am still learning. And look, we might do this podcast now and I listen back to it when we're doing podcast number 50 and I'll be like, holy shit, what was I saying?
Yeah.
I knew nothing.
But that's the way it goes, right? You're saying it 2 years in.
So I can only speak from like my experiences of what I have seen and what I have watched. And I have done a lot of research because I'm someone who submerges themselves in whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
So I came from a space of watching some of these females and what they were doing, and also males, and going, don't want to do that. I don't find that funny.
Yeah.
I don't want to go down that road. I want to empower women and inspire men.
Yeah. I like that.
Because I think there is something to be said about, one, a powerful woman, and two, to inspire a man to then want to be in at that level of that powerful woman, and not to bring her down and not to push her aside and just to, and not to idolize her and not to put her on this pedestal of like goddess or anything like that as well. So yeah, I want to empower women. A lot of
guys do. I've been guilty of it before until I've learned better.
Yeah.
I think most guys probably do that at some point, but
there's this beautiful balance that can play. And I think it comes, and I think that's where some understanding, again, I'm always going to come from the female perspective. I'm always going to come from a cis female perspective. I identify as female. I'm attracted to men. That's the way I identify.
Yeah. You're being real. That's you. Yeah.
That's me. And I just see it as from a space of constantly being, like, over my years, being put down by men, being pushed aside, being underestimated, all this sort of stuff, and not being bitter about it. I don't come off as a bitch. I am not here to be a bitch because I love men. I think I've had amazing men in my life. In terms of my best friends, 50% women, 50% men.
It's a good balance.
Yeah. And I've, to the point where I've got a mate who's like, you're going to be the best man at my wedding. I'm like, sweet.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Bring it on. Yeah. Strippers. No. I'll be better than that. So yeah, I sort of come from this space of, also, like, a lot of my guy friends will say to me, Annisa, you're fucking awesome. I never want to mess with you.
Yeah.
But you're awesome.
Yeah, you can be confronting.
It's like you can be this strong, powerful woman and not be a bitch.
Yeah.
And you can be this, like, you can own your sexuality and be attractive and whatever and not be a slut.
Yeah.
And, and you can be intelligent and, charming, but also you don't have to be, like, inferior, or you don't have to think people are inferior to you. So I think there's this beautiful self-awareness that can come with that. So in terms of what I've experienced, I've definitely noticed that it's easy to take shots at the societal norms that have come before us. It is easy for the guy to be like, I fucked all these chicks, because that's what has come before. That's the comedy that's come before. That's the idea that's come before. That's the culture that's come before. I'm such a player because I get to fuck all these chicks. Or vice versa. You get, like, the nerdy shy guy up on stage and he talks about how he doesn't get anything.
Yeah.
Guarantee the nerdy shy guy is getting more than the hot guy on stage. Just saying. So I think there needs to be this. And again, this is not for everybody. This is just the way that I do my comedy, and this is the way that I want to produce my work. I want it to elevate above what has come before.
Yep.
I want it to be better, because through comedy, and Disagree with me if you wish, but this is the truth because this is the way that we have done it before. Through comedy and entertainment is how we educate people.
Yeah, well, they get a lot from, you can learn a lot of bad things from film with dating and relationships and things like that. It's not always as perfect as the guy chasing the girl all the time or doing these huge romantic gestures that get the girl. A lot of the time, girls like to do the chasing too.
The way that we have, like, if we're going back to Roman times, the way that we told stories, the way that we told values, the way that we told how to conduct ourselves in societal's eyes was through theatre and stories and poetry and art. Like, that was how we did it. And it hasn't changed because you know why? Because that's what the masses like to consume.
Yeah.
I don't know many people who are like, oh my God, I really want to watch ABC 24/7, news channel 24 hours a day. No, they'll watch it for a small snippet. They'll get what they want from it. And I guarantee you they're entertained in some other way.
Yeah. Well, they can apply these things to their own life and learn something from it. That they see parts of these characters or what have you in their own lives, and they start to find things about themselves and take themselves out for a moment. Like, some people use it for just entertainment, surely.
Look, and I get escapism is important.
Yeah. But you can
to a point.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
If we are using entertainment and clickbait and all this sort of stuff to escape on a regular basis, I'm sorry, but that really makes me concerned about where we are in a mental capacity as society.
You lose sight of yourself and who you are as a person.
Well, we're in the highest depression rate we have ever been in. Again, granted, we don't know because it wasn't measurable as it is now. But I truly believe it because we are constantly escaping. And you only have to. On the plane here, I was doing some work on my show and I have my head up and I'm kind of like taking it all in because I'm a big observer because through human behavior, I get inspiration. Through human behavior, I get stories and I get new work, right? So I'm sitting there and to the left of me is this youngish guy, I'd say probably early 20s, headphones on, watching a movie. And then to the right of me is a 15-year-old boy playing a game, headphones on, head down. And then I looked up and and I'm not even kidding you, the entire plane, which was full, by the way, all had their heads
fixed on a screen. Had their heads down, fixed on a screen. And I just had this moment of, are we that? And again, I understand it's context and content, right? So the content that I give you in the context of being on a plane, I get there's nowhere to go. You're sitting on a plane. But are we that lost in the fact that we want to escape from where we are, that the first thing we have to do is to miss out on the safety message, not watch that or listen to that we have to be entertained as soon as we fucking sit down? Yeah, well, it becomes your life, doesn't it? The consume of it. But I don't know if that can be. Sometimes you can find that there's not two different people because you can't just narrow everything down to that. But there was an interesting conversation that I had a friend once, and for me, flights and things like that is the most creative I am sometimes. Have the best thoughts because I switch off from that stuff.
Yeah.
I can't worry about trying to see this person or going to do that or having to go to the gym. I'm on a plane. I can't go anywhere. So you can put that away and sometimes come up with the best actually creative material. So that could be from two creatives talking to each other with that mindset, whereas everyone else is like, I need to be entertained, push that button, turn that on and watch that. Because I had an interesting conversation once with a friend and he said it was just like, I'll just be happy to get a house, and I can go fishing all day and do this and do that and go to the job. And, that'll be me. Like, I don't mind as long as I got a beer at the end of the day or what have you, pretty simple things, which is fine if that's the way you want to live your life. And that's awesome. Everyone to it, and family, kids or what, if that's what you want as well. But then there's also other people that are striving for so much more. It's like, sure, I want those things, the family, the kids and stuff, but there's a fire burning inside me that wants to achieve something else. Like, I know that I'm destined to do something else with this and, create and entertain and connect with people on a large basis. And where film comes in with that, because you can connect with people. On that other side, they're watching it, the consumers, you know what I mean? So it's like that could be two different mindsets there. But I think obviously with smartphones and laptops and things like that these days, it's so easy to just switch something on. I mean, I think that's a huge issue in itself. That's probably a whole nother podcast you could do on.
Oh, absolutely.
Is because like throwing it in front of the kids straight there, just here, watch that, do that, you know, what are they going to grow up to be like? Like the ones that are having it from the age of 2 now, instead of going out and playing outside and being creative and getting outside of your own head, or, you know, like inside of your own head sometimes, or outside of it, playing out, you know, falling over, hurting yourself, learning from that, instead of just falling over and dying on a video game, you know?
Well, there's actually side note, but there's actually issues now with musculoskeletal development in teenagers because of these, touching the mic. Always have trouble with anything named Mike. From playing these games and doing these things. So it's really interesting that it's already affecting physical development, and we can't see the effects of mental development yet because it hasn't been long enough.
Oh, for sure.
But you can already see the ripple effect. You can already see how people talk to each other or how they don't talk to each other. Like, I am a phone call person.
Yeah.
I appreciate that not everyone, like, I get texting. Sometimes it's not the right time or whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's nice to have a bit of banter back and forth. If you know the person, that's great. But this text messaging culture.
So much confusion that can come from messaging.
Messaging is like, you realize messaging, and again, I might have a mind-blowing moment for some of you, but you realize that the intention of the words that you read come from you.
Yourself, yeah, the way you're mirroring what that actually, the context of the situation, where it could be completely different on the other end.
Exactly.
They could be joking with what they're saying, and you've taken another way because your mindset's somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets lost, the connection. It's connectionless, really, almost to a certain point. You're staying in touch, but is there really a connection? And that's why when you call someone on the phone and you talk to them, you can tell the tone of their voice. You can see if they're upset. You can see if they're having a joke, if they're playing around.
Yep.
And the conversations are that much more connected and can actually go somewhere more positive or more in depth.
Yeah.
And have a real conversation.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it comes back to where that disconnect is with social outings or social interactions, is that it is done to social media now so much rather than actual genuine conversation. I mean, how were their ancestors running around? You know, they didn't have any of that, but it's in your DNA to go outside and run around. You feel so much better when you get some fresh air and you go climb a mountain or hike or go to the beach and get some vitamin D, whatever happens to you. You always feel so much better, and you're losing that disconnection with life, with being so much fixed on that screen in front of you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I completely agree with you.
So that it's still an interesting thing you say, like you look around on the phone, but it's like that you go into a lunchroom at work and like all the guys, like there'll be some that are laughing and joking, but most people will be on their phones.
Oh, absolutely.
And some people are even messaging, like, you know, young people these days, they're messaging each other and they're in the same goddamn room from each other.
I know.
And they don't even talk to each other 3 hours that they hang out. That's a hangout now. Like, goddamn, that's trouble when you hear that from kids doing that. Switch those phones off away and get outside and go do something.
It's challenging. But on another perspective and another like flip side, and this is where it's like, for me, balancing my value system and where I sit, it's a lot of my communication and my message with how I am and my positive message, particularly around mental health and dream building and dream chasing and goal chasing and achieving, comes through and, you know, penetrates people through social media. So I use Instagram and Instagram stories a lot to help, you know, generate that message that I'm trying to create, because I know people feel safe there to watch, to listen. Having those deeper conversations with people face to face can be very confronting.
Yeah, sure.
So I have a lot of people who I've noticed have been watching me for many years. I have a lot of people who have been watching me and won't say anything, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, they're like, oh my gosh, like that thing you said just completely changed my perspective.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I said that like a year ago. Yeah, it's been amazing.
Yeah, and it's resonated with them, and it's urged them to go do something possibly with their lives or make changes. I remember that when I first started acting and started putting things out on Facebook, and I had a few messages, you know, 6 months, maybe a year or two down the track, along the way of going, oh man, I really love what you're doing. You know, like people that I didn't really talk to much. It was just sort of friends that, you know, you build your network on Facebook, whatever. You have to do it to a certain extent. You know, we're mocking but we have to use it as a tool, you know, not a way of life.
Yeah, I think that's really important to be clear on. It is a tool.
Yeah.
It is a tool, and you have to be like any trade. You cannot ever blame your tools for your outcome.
It's always the workmanship. It's how you operate that tool and how you go about your task of what you're doing. It's not a task of life, though. You're supposed to be living life.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so use it as a tool. Please don't use it as an outcome.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, like you say, like we have to use it. We're using it as a tool to promote what we're trying to do. I understand that, but you can get sucked into that vortex that is social media. And
absolutely.
Especially, I guess I can see from a certain point as I've grown up with this now, we didn't have that when we were growing up. I would way rather, I sometimes was, I'd play, like when my dad would stop playing cricket with me or kicking the ball around, I'd be still playing outside by myself, playing mini games and chip chase, you know, doing this over the top of defense. They weren't even there.
That was so
But I
good.
carved that shit up when they weren't there. But yeah, it was, you know, like that's how you get that imagination going, you know, and that's where you turn those cogs and things get created, you know.
Have running races down the back paddock.
Ridiculous stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. But I think that also can come from being, say, in a small town or growing up in a country town like you did. You have that room to do it. Whereas when you're in the city, you've got your own tight-knit community and you stay to that. But there's a lot of people as well. It's different because I meet different mentalities now after moving from a small town to this, you know, to Brisbane here. Not a huge city, but it's still a big city compared to where I came from. And I've been here like 9 years now, but I can see the difference from people like early on from the people that are from the city as opposed to the people that have come from small towns. And their general interactions are so much different, and the connect in itself, you know, and as opposed to two foreigners, I'm a foreigner coming here, other foreigners seem to interact and want to have a good conversation, just happy to chat, even through, as we say, text messages, the difference of that, even with the dating apps and everything. They'll send novel text messages, and I like doing that too. Like I'll do it back. To a certain extent, you got to stop and you want to connect and, you know, meet up for a drink or give them a call or what have you. But
I knew this would turn into dating apps.
It keeps to go back that way.
I knew it would come this way.
But yeah, and you know, like they're so happy to do it. You do that once to someone that's from the city and not used to that, or what? I don't know. They're just like, too much. I'm out.
Too much.
Like, and to a certain extent, I'm like, okay, we should meet up now because we obviously get along and we can connect. But that's an interesting one in itself.
You shared too much information about your life.
I really don't mind.
With a person. No, I'm saying.
Okay.
Whoa. Let's not make this about you.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying, like, people get, I find it really interesting with dating apps. It's this thing of like, I want to find someone. I want to meet them. I want to find them. I want to meet them. I want to have a conversation with them. I want to have a communication with them. I want to have a relationship with them. I want to, you know, eventually marry them. I want to have this like amazing love story. I want to have this. I want to have that. Oh, but I can't tell them where I work or where I live or what I do or what I like or anything like that. Or I'll just say, hey, how was your day?
Opening up, being vulnerable. I guess it's
I can't tell them anything about myself.
Yeah, well, you're not going to get anywhere with that. You're only going to get someone that's very superficial or the same exact way. And that's never going to work.
It's not going to work. And what I challenge people on is sometimes to, again, having this smorgasbord of choice, going back to the buffet analogy, which I really like, by the way.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It was a good one,
yeah,
right? I was just like, pat myself on the back. Going back to that buffet analogy, it's what I find lacks is people's commitment just to get to know someone. It's not girlfriend. It's not to sleep with. It's not to marry. It's not long-term relationship. It's not whatever you want to call it, right? It's not that. It's just a commitment to get to know someone.
Yeah.
That's all that's required. That's all that's needed. Because when you get to know someone, you know it's like going to a barbecue, right? And you know your mate and you know his mate or his mate, but then there's other people that you don't know. You would rock up, probably grab yourself a beer or a beverage or whatever, and you'd be introduced, and then your mate has to go off and do something else, and you feel obliged to stay in that circle and just be like, oh, what do you do, blah, blah, blah. And you will end up talking.
You're forced to socialize, and sometimes the best outcomes and your best friends can come from that sort of scenario.
And all you had to do was like you just committed yourself. You're just like, I'm going to a barbecue. I'm not going to know anybody. I'm just going to commit myself to that.
Oh, yeah, you got to push yourself to do it. And then you end up having the best nights most times when you do that, or you go to a gig by yourself, or you go to a certain thing like a film premiere or what have you, and you're like, I don't want to show up with someone. I'm just going to go myself. And you always meet the best people you tend to connect.
But the greatest thing is if you don't connect with someone at the barbecue and you don't know them very well,
you move on and go to the next person and keep going.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I feel like sometimes people get so caught up with, have you ever had that time when like you've got like 3 parties or something, like when you're younger, that you're like, I really want to go to all 3. And you're like, I don't know how I'm going to get to like all 3 or whatever. And you've got a group of friends. You start at one and you're like, you're constantly thinking and you're watching and you're clocking. You're like, oh, man, if we don't go now, we're not going to get to the next party in time, or someone's going to be wasted or whatever. But someone's having.
So you're never really there at the time.
You're never really there
to have a good time, because you're always at that next thing, and then you go home and you're like,
the next party's going to be great. The next
party's
going to be great. The next party's going to be great. You go to the next party. Oh, this is fucking lame, isn't
are they
it?
the comedy nights?
Oh, hey.
Every Monday night, show
Every
starts
Monday night.
to appear. What's that? That's Newmarket, right? Yeah.
Woo, thanks, sad guy.
Yeah. But so we'll go back to your comedy, because we definitely got sidetracked with that right now.
The moral of that story is just, if you kind of find some intrigue in someone, just commit to get to know them. That's all that's required.
Yeah.
Because you know what? If you liked someone back and they didn't commit to get to know you, it's like that. It's always that guy that's scorned, that's like, oh, you didn't even get to know me. Like, you didn't even try or whatever. It's like, just, if you get to know them a little bit, and you'll see red flags straight away or not.
Yeah.
Or orange flags or green flags.
But it's about putting yourself out there at the start and being your real self, rather than being anything superficial or fake.
And be present in the moment. I guarantee you that the people that you are swiping on after this person will still be there.
Yeah.
Because it's the same cesspool every time.
It is, yeah.
So yeah, just commit to getting to know someone. That's all.
Put yourself out there, be vulnerable.
Be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a minute.
Take a chance.
Take a chance.
So you're about to film your special here in Brisbane, hour long, family and friends. There's probably still tickets available. So there is. Tell everyone where your show's going to be at.
It's going to be at the Ron Hurley Theatre, which is in Seven Hills Hub, which is really cool because I wanted to find a space that visually looks just gorgeous, and it does. So along with being visually gorgeous is that it's quite large.
Yeah. So is it a little, well, not a little, but a theatre, obviously?
It's a theatre, yeah. So, I mean, it's great. I can't wait to do my show there in that venue. So if you would like to come along.
Guys got it up. Look
at that. Hey, it's coming up. I mean, we can't see it. Like the people who are listening to this podcast can't go like, but we can tell them.
Yeah, but so, okay, where can they get tickets if they want to go?
The easiest way is to jump on my website. So www.annisa.com.au. That's ANNISA. Or you can even type in Annisa B and it comes up pretty much.
Which is your stage name, we should add.
Yeah, which is my stage name for comedy.
Yeah.
And please, come along. It will be a show and you definitely will enjoy yourself.
We're going.
Yeah.
Me and Side Guy are going.
Yeah,
VIP.
Side Guy's coming too.
So Saturday night, that's when you should come, turn up. VIP after party.
VIP after party. We're doing it. There's going to be drinkies. There's going to be cake. It's going to be so much fun. I'm really stoked. Like, this is the way I designed this. And again, I have intention behind everything I do. It's important to me to know why I'm doing things. And I kind of came in doing this show. Initially, it was just, I knew that friends and family were going to be kind of around because I have my Russian Christmas tomorrow. And I hadn't done anything for my 30th because my 30th was just recently. And I knew that I'm sorry, but I can't do things the way that everyone else does them. I don't know if you picked up on that.
But I sort of, just a little bit, yeah.
I can't do it. I can't do it. So the idea, and bless anyone that wants to do it this way, I totally get it. It's a good time and fun. I just can't do drinkies, getting sloshed and having cake. I just can't do it. It's not my thing. So I thought instead because when you're at that space in life, when you are heading into your 30s, it's like a new chapter, it's a new phase. And I think sometimes, I don't know about how everyone else sees it, but I know it sometimes as a friend and a family member, I wish I could give more to that person for their life.
Yeah.
Rather than just rocking up at a party and being like, hey, let me drink all your booze. I want to give more. So I came from a space of going, I'm going to put on a show for my friends and family, this show that I've worked so hard for, and I don't want them to buy me a gift. I don't want them to have any obligation in that way, shape, or form. I would love them to buy me a ticket. And the ticket is simply just to cover the venue.
And it's supporting your career as well.
And it's supporting my
you're getting
career.
entertained at the same time.
And all I wanted to do was be like, because I find this is something I've worked so hard on by myself. I'm someone who values and loves experiences, because experiences mean memories, and memories last a lifetime. The piece of jewelry or the watch or the gift card to something only lasts for whatever it lasts for, right? So I found that, or my thought process was, I want to put on this show for my friends and family and people who wanted to explore this and be this here with me, and give them an experience so that they remember Anissa's 30th, she put on this show and we all experienced together, and you remember that joke you did or whatever, because now 10 years down the track from here, when they come to my 40th show, they'll be like, oh my God, do you remember that? Like, you've progressed so far. We can see your change. We've been a part of your journey from where you kind of started to now. Like that is life-changing. That is inspirational. That is what I talk about, like empowering women and inspiring men. That is my value system. And I would probably feel less of myself if I had a party and gave people nothing in return.
Yep.
So by doing this, I give them not only experience, but an experience of me. So they don't get to forget that with me.
And it's an amazing way to connect with everybody once again.
Yeah.
Not just a conversation, but you'll be having that afterwards, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, many conversations.
After party, just to throw it out there again.
The after party should be fun. That'll be fun. But
so
yeah, so
is
that's
Elizabeth
kind of...
Dawson going to come out there? Or
look, I'm not going to say yay or nay on that, so you'll just have to come to the show to find out.
One thing I do want to touch on before we finish up is that you recently went to America and you did spots in America, which is huge, being 2 years in once again, and awesome that you're doing a special and you're filming it and you're going to shop that around, which is what you're filming in Brisbane. But getting a call up to go to the American comedy scene is huge. Really, it's so hard to get spots in those places, build the connection to do that, even if you're from LA or wherever in America, but LA being a pretty big hub for comedy. LA and New York, probably the two biggest states for comedy. So how was that for you, that experience? And how did that actually come about? Because that's a pretty amazing thing.
Okay, well, first of all, I think I just need to pre-frame this by saying acting and filmmaking and everything is like up there. And now comedy has got to this space where I've realized it's all on the same level. So for me, it's all now what I want, right? It was like initially, acting, comedy, acting, film, that's why I'm moving to Sydney. Oh, comedy, great. Like, let's see how this goes. And then, I actually get the same feels. I get the same creative buzz. I get everything that I want. I can actually deliver my message more in this space as well. So that it elevated comedy and stand-up to the same bar that I wanted for film and television. Yep. In saying that, though, I still have very big goals and dreams and vision in film and television. So I decided with my co-producer, Nicole, that we were going to go over to America for the American film market.
Okay.
So that was huge in itself. We had a couple of projects that we were working on. I had a feature film script idea that has been in my head for many, many, many years. I, in fact, started the story when I was in high school, in boarding school. And I told it to her and she's like, this is amazing. You need to write this. So I actually took about a month and a bit off kind of doing like stand-up spots because I needed every waking moment to write this script out. So we'd already planned it. We've been working towards it. We were going over there for the American film market. We had a couple of things to pitch. We wanted to meet people. We wanted to start those connections and that network, right? And I had this moment when I was chatting to a couple of my friends and Sam as well. And Nicole had said to me, she's like, you should see if there's stand-up spots around when we're over there. Like, take the opportunity. I'm like, yeah, I should. I'm all about that. Like, if there's opportunity there, I can take it. And then Sam had said to me, Nice, you should, message around and see if there's any stand-up spots available. I'm like, okay, cool. And then another comedy friend of mine also said like the same thing. And I was like, okay, again, points of three. So I I messaged around. I like find out when the open mics were on. I found out all this sort of stuff. I found out bits and pieces. And you know what the funniest thing is? I didn't end up doing any open mics. I did book spots.
Yeah, which is what I saw. Yeah, okay. So
I was just expecting to rock up and do some open mic and sort of feel the scene out. And I ended up going to some open mics but not getting on because the scene is so unbelievably competitive over there.
Oh, for sure. Comedy's huge these days.
So competitive. And it was just so happened that I was at a gig and I was watching these comics at a very well-known place. And I won't say why because of what I was talking about. And I was talking to this guy standing next to me and I didn't know where I was going. And he was behind me and he was an older gentleman. And I was like, he's like, this way. I was like, okay, cool. So I'd gone the wrong way. Back down. Ran down. It's all packed. Nowhere to sit. So I sort of stand and this guy's standing next to me and chatting away. And then all these people come up and like hug him and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, he's known.
He's somebody.
He's somebody. Yeah. And I'm standing next to him and I didn't know who this was. And he goes, oh, have you been here before? And I said, no, first time. And he goes, I know, because obviously you didn't know where the room was. Like, I told you where to go. I'm like, oh, ha, ha, ha. I was like, fuck, this is a great start. Anyway, I'm chatting away to him and, again, not much was said apart from the fact, like names exchanged and all this sort of stuff. And then they start and the bookers, so the way that some of these rooms work is they do open mics and the comics have to come and grab like a ticket. There's only like so many tickets they're getting out. They put in a bucket. So say there's like 70 tickets given out. They put in a bucket and only like 15 comics get drawn.
Yeah.
So 70 people are waiting there.
Yeah, wow, okay.
To see if their name gets drawn. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's a lot. And I'm sure there's people that they call up because they want to see them and whatever the politics is of whatever
if they're known, they're going to give them a spot. Like if they're amazing,
and the bookers are like behind us, and how it works is if someone does like a 4 or 5 minute set that people like, then they might put them down because they want to see them again. And that might mean that they go to the Sunday session a little later, and then from then they build into the,
they
the
get
next
a bit of
one,
time.
and then they build up the levels in the rooms and whatever it might be, which in a way I think is great because it sort of should be that way. But to be seen initially is very hard. Yeah,
well, you audition for some of the big rooms, like the main one, like the Comedy Store and places like that.
Yeah.
To be picked. So, okay, that happened. And are you going to name drop who this guy was or you're going to leave us in suspense?
No, I'll leave you in suspense. I'll tell you what his room is though. But anyway, I was chatting away and I was like, how long do these people get? And he's like, 3-4 minutes. I'm like, okay. And I just turned back to him. I said, so why are they fucking wasting it? And he just lost it. Because the things that I was seeing was just, I'm sorry, but it was wasting 3 and 4 minutes. There was like no preparation.
Especially
there was
with that kind of crowd,
no time. I'm like, why would you be wasting this? Like, why? Especially in this particular room. And he lost it. He goes, you're funny. And I said, you wait, there's a drinking game. Because I just saw this pattern. I said, it's either going to be self-deprecating humor, girl's going to talk about fucking some guy, or it's going to be about some guy being depressed. Like that was the thing.
Yeah, okay.
And he's like, okay. And then no joke. Next one that came up, I was like, self-deprecating humor. Next girl that came up, it's about ex-boyfriend and sex. Next boyfriend and sex. But he just lost it. He was like, you like,
You
can
pick the people,
You can pick the people. I said, because I've been watching this for a little while. And he started asking me questions and whatever. And he said, look, let's chat outside. I'm like, great. Chat outside, meet a couple of other comedians who he introduced me to. And then this girl comes up to me and she goes, I can't believe you're speaking to Matt Devlin. I'm like, okay, cool. She's like, he runs one of the biggest privately run comedy rooms in LA. Awesome, great. Then chatting away, she's like, you have to go see it. And Matt's like, yeah. I'm like, when's it on? He's like, every Wednesday night. It's free. People rock up. They get a wristband, right, to get in because they only allocate 150 people in this room. No joke. Probably 80 to 100 people get turned away because it's a free event and it's so unbelievably good. It's downstairs in the middle of Venice and he's like, you have to come and see it. I'm like, great, I'm there. Like, this is what I want. I want experience. And then at the end, he's like, how long are you here till? I'm like, oh, I'm only here for another 2 weeks. He's like, damn, I've already done my bookings. He goes, and I was like, were you thinking about like getting me on? He goes, yeah. I'm like, you haven't seen any of my stuff. He goes, you've got chops because of the way I was talking.
Yeah,
He's like,
of
you've
course,
got chops. He goes, I can tell that you're good. I'm like, oh.
He could read the energy.
I was like,
especially
thank you.
Yeah.
Like that was compliment enough for me. That was great. So I knew I was coming. We'd already connected, blah. An hour before the show, Matt messages me and says, Annisa, can you have a 5 to 7 ready? Because I think one of my girls, she's come from New York. She's booked like 3 gigs tonight. I don't think she's going to be able to make this one.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'll put it on. He's like, just on standby. I'm like, sweet.
Can you bring up Matt Devlin, by the way? Because I actually don't know who that is. So
he runs Venice Underground is what his...
So Venice Beach, is that sort of along that?
Yeah, so you know where the Venice sign is?
Yeah.
Like there's a pub there.
Yeah.
And
I
like
saw
directly
some of your
off...
pictures and that looked familiar because Guy and I went there.
There he is. That's him.
Maybe I have seen him before.
He's around.
He looks like Forrest Gump when he was walking all that time in the movie. But so he called you up because this said comic from New York might not show up.
Yeah, so I ended up rocking up and sitting backstage with the comics, and it's an amazing room, and I highly recommend it to any comedian that is seriously in love with the game and in love with the scene. Go to this room because this is not the Comedy Store. This is not Hollywood Improv. This is not the Laugh Factory. This is how I think the roots of comedy and the fields of comedy really started and really grew to that kind of schmick kind of idealism.
Yeah.
It's probably now one of my favorite rooms. Like I'm sorry, but it's probably now my favorite room.
Yeah.
Because it's just brilliant. And they do the set lists from who's around, and it's just I'm looking at the backstage and they've got all these set lists, and there's just incredible comedian after incredible comedian just randomly on these set lists. And I'm like, holy, what did I walk into? How did I get here? Chatting away to who was on that night, making some friends. Find out that like Matt's like, she's not going to make it. You're going on. Okay. And lucky I'd already done another gig at another place at Burbank called Flappers, which I'd organised before I got there, which was good. And I tried out that set and I was like, oh, yeah. And I kind of sussed out the room and I thought, oh, no, I'll do a different set. And I rocked up and so I did my set and everything. I got some laughs, which was great. But the funniest thing that they laughed at, which I thought I already tried it at one of the other things, the other places, and I just thought this was so funny. I've written a whole set about it. Was I rocked up on stage and I said, "G'day, my name's Annisa, and as you can tell by my accent, I am educated." And they lost their shit.
With the g'day. Sold them a g'day.
They lost their shit.
Yeah.
They thought it was the funniest thing ever. And it was just so brilliant because I just had such a stream of events that led up to that point that I've written a whole set about it, which is one of my newer sets. But I've decided that I will do it tomorrow on this week for the recording because awesome. I think it's so great.
Yeah. It's a brilliant way to start too.
Yeah.
It's such a punch one-liner from the start. And you need that as a comic to get them on your side.
Well, whenever I walk up for my open mics or whatever, my one-liner is I always fiddle with the microphone and I'm like, I always have trouble with anything named Mike. So that's my opener and it gets people inside pretty quick. And I've got to come up with more, but it's my favorite so far.
Yeah, it's sometimes some of those really cheesy lines. Like there's a way with it. And there was a guy that was doing stuff down there that was, like a comedy club here. He has some really cheesy stuff. I don't think it's funny, and not too many people think it's funny. But there's a point where those cheesy lines work, and that's that's a good one. Yeah, if you can pull it off with a conviction, Yeah,
it sets up for my character. It sets up a lot of things, right? So I ended up doing this gig and I'm standing backstage afterwards and I'm chatting to these comics and I don't even know how I get here because the next youngest in the game is 4 to 5 years in and has been touring around and doing all sorts of things and whatever.
Yeah.
Everyone else is 8 years plus.
Yeah, for sure.
Plus who are regulars at the Comedy Store, who are regulars at the Laugh Factory, who are regulars at Ha Ha Bar. And I've just connected with them.
Yeah.
And there's a couple in there that I am now like creating really amazing friendships with and relationships with that I am just unbelievably grateful that have turned around and been like, I want to come to Australia. I'm like, when you do, tell me. I've got people that would just like die to have you at their, at their places, at their gigs and everything. And the sweetest thing is that, because I've created these connections and because I'm starting to create these relationships, is that they want me to come along with them. Do you know what I mean? Like they're like, okay, well, would you consider opening for me?
Yeah.
Would you consider doing
amazing,
this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, of course I would. Like, I don't expect that.
Yeah.
And whether it comes...
Just grateful for the connection and the friendship.
I'm so grateful for the connection, the friendship, and so grateful for the opportunity to have the knowledge, because I can ask them questions and ask them advice and get that 8+ years.
Oh, yeah. Money can't buy that. Yeah,
I can't get that on the scene here.
No.
I can't.
And that's a different environment too in itself. How you said you had to work your material around being in an American crowd in LA and the rooms there.
Oh, yeah.
So how did you find you had to throw a bit out there first couple of sets warm up before you came to this point? Or
some of them I think some of them with some of my jokes, it's more the context for the content. So I noticed that my content was like good and would work in the American environment. However, the culture of the content would not.
Yeah.
So with one of my jokes, I talk about like all my friends are getting like married is kind of where I go with it. But one of the ladies yelled out, divorced. And I was like, how old do you think I am? But then in talking to one of my American friends afterwards, they're like, oh yeah, we all get married young here.
Yeah.
So like 30 for me, which is like when everyone's starting to get married, is like second marriage in their world. So it's not that the content that I was talking about, was wrong. It was more the context in terms of the place that I'm talking about it
and
at.
what the material they're
and
going to
the
be able to
culture
connect
and,
with.
and what they connect with. So I definitely, knowing what I know now, when I go back, I would be spending a little bit of time just talking to people, just an everyday person, just to understand the kind of verbiage and the culture that would go around those kind of topics so that I can tweak it a little bit. So it's still my work and it's still what I want to talk about and everything, but it works within their culture. So that was something that I walked away from, and I get to talk to comics about as well, because my culturalism, like on my content, is not off par, because I've been speaking to them about it and they're like, no, this is what we like to hear and talk about and whatever, and you'll definitely find an audience in that. However, how you deliver it, it's either going to be funny because you're Aussie, which is what they like to laugh at.
Yeah, of course.
Or it's going to be funny because you've related it back to them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a beautiful learning experience for me.
Yeah, of course. And
I got some laughs. I was happy with that. It's always worse in your head than it probably is in reality.
Yeah, of course. So how did your set go at this big what was the comedy
great.
venue?
It's called Venice Underground.
Venice Underground.
Yeah,
okay,
Venice
I
Underground.
have heard of that, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. There it is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's up on the screen, guys, that you can't see because this is a podcast.
Guys got this, but you can find it yourself because you have that Google at your fingertips.
Yes.
Which we've told you to stay away from a little bit too.
So very, very humbling. And I walked back feeling like I was a beginner again, and I still feel like I'm a beginner because of that experience, which is so fantastic.
Humbling,
So it, like any possible ego that I could possibly grow in this smaller scene, I'm like, that's been popped like big time.
Yeah.
So I've come back hungry. I've come back knowing exactly where I want these next kind of 4 shows to go. I know there's a 5th in the series, but I don't know what that looks like yet, and I think that'll come with time. But yeah, like that's incredible. Like the fact that I can be like, okay, I feel like I know nothing. I'm starting again. I am hungry. I am humbled. Everyone has their place. Everyone has their journey, and I know nothing. Yep. I'm just learning every time.
You're a baby ready to walk again.
Baby ready to walk.
But that's the thing that can come with a lot of things in life, and not just comedy, is that we get these moments where we're knocked down to the canvas, and we're 5 rounds in the fight, and you come back up and you've learned what you've learned from what's happened already and what actually those punches that were thrown your way. And that's where the best growth comes from. It's hard at the time, relationships, what have you, when you put yourself out there with these relationships or with yourself in the creative environment or the industry or anything you're doing really in life.
Yeah.
And that's the space where you're going to sink or swim, but that's the best place to come from with growth and finding something out about yourself and where you go to elevate to the next level on your journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think there's something to be said about that analogy. You're so right. Like if you put yourself in the boxing ring, 5 rounds, you could be down, but you've learned so much in those 5 rounds. At the 6th round, you're like, I'm so ready for this. I know exactly what's happening. I'm ready to fight.
Yeah.
So I feel like with anything, I've always come from the space of not everything is going to be the best. Not everything is good, not from a perspective of comparing yourself to others, but it's never going to be your best work. I think this idea of perfectionism, particularly in the entertainment industry, because people are so hungry for like consuming content, it has to be great. It has to be clout worthy. It has to be shareable. It has to be this. I would challenge you just to create. And if you're not wanting to put it out there, then don't. And if you do want to put it out there, be proud that you just put it out there. Don't worry about the outcome of what that looks like.
Let it go.
And let it go, because that was what you wanted. You created the work. You made the work. It's done.
Be proud of what you've just done, the energy that you've put into it and what you've done, and then move on from it and go to the next thing. You can get consumed by, say, a post like that and you're like, oh, it didn't get 100 likes or it didn't get 1,000 likes or what have you. Oh, I'll delete that. I've done it before. I have done it before.
Oh, yeah.
And I've got to that point now and I'm like, you know what, you just put it out there and forget about it and just move on. You know, eventually people will come back to it. They'll see it, whatever. It's out there now in the social media stratosphere. Yeah. Just move on.
Oh, yeah.
And just keep going. You can't really let and it's something that I've like had to go through as well, is letting other people's opinions dictate the way you live in your life. And you just can't do that. Like you just got to stay true to what you know and what you believe and just keep going with that and just go full hog with it 100%. And eventually you'll make it. You'll make it somewhere with what you're trying to do. Yeah.
And I think also being humbled in knowing when you've made a mistake, humbled in knowing when you've fucked it up, so to speak, and just owning that. I think there's a very big shift on the fact that people don't want to own up to their actions, because if you don't take 100% rewind and press play. If you don't take 100% responsibility for your life, your actions, your words, your attitude, the way you conduct yourself, your relationships, if you don't take 100% responsibility in any of those things, then I'm sorry, but you are not living. Like you're not human. You're not exploring the moment, because as soon as you start deflecting everything off someone else, oh, this has happened because this person did this to me.
Yeah.
This person did. You are starting to deflect every emotion that you can possibly do or feel, and you wonder why I don't feel connected to anybody, because you're not being authentic.
Yeah. And you only have so much energy in your mind and in your body and in your being. If you concentrate on the negative things and reflect it in that way, you're never going to get anywhere with what you've got. You know? Just keep going. Just keep doing your thing.
Yeah.
Trust in the process.
Trust in the process and do the fucking work.
That's it. Hard work pays off.
Yes. Is that where you want to finish it?
We'll finish on that
All
note,
right,
I
go.
think. Annisa B,
Thank
it's been
you.
awesome to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Comedy show this weekend, the 10th and 11th at the, what was it, Seven Hills?
It's at the Ron Hurley Theatre. You can find tickets at www.annisa.com.au. That is ANNISA. And I would love, love, love to see you guys all there.
Come be there, people. Be awesome. Turn up in the after party.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Done.
Let's do it.
Hey.
Done.
Yeah.
Out. Woo! You did it. You made it to the end. And now for the bonus scene. No, not really. There's not a bonus scene, but you made it to the end. Thanks a lot for listening, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Or if you'd like to follow our journey, Going Deep with Dan Good on Instagram, or follow my personal account, Dan__Good. Thank you, everyone. Until next time.